fact, is someone who's been instrumental in building many of the businesses of the Motilal Oswal Group. He, in fact, is none other than the managing director and CEO of Motilal Oswal Asset Management Company Limited, having joined the group, of course, in 2000 and having been building it to becoming the name that it is today. In fact, he's built many businesses, including the institutional equities, investment banking, home finance, among the others. He's also been part of the executive board that drove business strategy and reviews for all businesses besides capital allocation of the group. Interestingly, he has also co-authored a book, India's Money Monarchs, featuring interactions with India's leading investment managers. Ladies and gentlemen, and all of our attendees, it is my absolute delight to bring on the main screen to you our next speaker, Mr. Naveen Agarwal, who's the Managing Director and CEO, Motilal Oswal.
Got it. Thank you, Cafe Mutual, for having Motilal Oswal Asset Management on this very, very impressive program and lineup that you put together. Thank you, Prem, and thank you all the participants for joining us today. Uh, I've been in the equity markets for the last 30 years, and one of the things that I'm going to introduce you today is to the cycle that we saw, in the previous upcycle, because the last decade for India was really a lost decade. So my presentation is really in three parts. The first part is about COVID cases, economy, and how the corporate earnings have played out. The second part is my four favorite frameworks about how to look at India longer term. And the third part is about again four frameworks on behavioral aspect, because that's very important to investing and eventually making money. So firstly, COVID is gradually going, rapidly going, and more importantly, the fear of COVID is totally gone. So we have the monthly new cases down by 80-90%, total active cases down by 80% plus, recovery rates are up to 97%, and vaccinations have now also started. So basically, India has anyways been unique in terms of how it has handled, the pandemic much better than many of our Western counterparts, and we've been luckier by virtue of our lifestyles. But this looks like a 2020 story and unlikely to, haunt us or bother us for 2021. If anything, the low base of 2020 makes it very interesting to look at the markets. Now, you may all recollect about 9 months back, you had the alphabet soup of U-shaped recovery, L-shaped recovery, W-shaped recovery, and they say picture speaks 1,000 words, and these exhibits will tell you what is the shape of the recovery. Almost all the high frequency indicators that we track are currently tracking or running at levels above pre-COVID, and so from zero sales that Maruti did in April month, they're doing record high sales right now, and the channel inventory is running very low. Hero Motors is doing record high sales as well. GST collections are record high as well. The daily e-way bill generation is a record high. So when many of us question, whether markets are very overvalued and that there are a lot of redemptions for the last 4 or 5 months of the order of 10, 15,000 crores every month, we are really anchored to the 7,600 Nifty that we saw back on the 23rd of March, and we are looking at 15,000 divided by 7,600 as a 100% move in the market. What it really is a 12, 13,000 Nifty pre-COVID, up by 10-15% now to 15,000 levels. And if you look at the prospects, we are looking at the highest ever GDP growth for India, one of the highest ever corporate profit growth for India, that's really around the corner in the year ending March 2022. I'll briefly talk about the budget. So most action was expected on the tax changes front. The markets were very, very fearful of the government. So we were looking at tax tweaks. There was no tax tweak. We were looking at COVID tax. There was no COVID tax. We were looking at estate duty. There was no estate duty. We were looking at reversal of corporate tax rate when government reduced the tax rates to 25% for existing companies and 15% for new projects. Nothing like that happened. So really, the fear of the government is something that the markets did not find, and where no action was expected, we saw a whole bunch of action. So, firstly, the most bold move that we've seen from the government is quite unique. We haven't seen this for many decades, right? Versus a 2.5% FRBM target for fiscal deficit, the government boldly put out the priority to spend, priority to invest, priority to build India, and set out a glide path for fiscal deficit to 4.5% by 2026. And in fact, S&P, Standard and Poor, which is the premier rating agency, did a call after the budget where they highlighted that if the government of India wants us to focus on growth of the economy and on divestments and privatization, we're happy to focus on that as well. We don't have to focus on fiscal deficit for rating India. Now, this is a big change. We lived in the fear last decade that if our fiscal deficit goes up, our rating will be cut. And just when we announced a new glide path with our new priorities as a country, S&P was very happy to align themselves with us, right? The next thing that personally I've been waiting for since 2014 is the amendment to the Bank Nationalization Act, where you could actually privatize the state-owned banks, right? State-owned banks are a big black hole, which suck up a lakh crores or more of taxpayers' money year after year, and it is the source of siphoning of money by crooked promoters, right? And that had to change. And finally, in 2021, versus expectation of seeing this from 2014, you may all recollect that Prime Minister used to do this Indra Dhanush sessions in Pune, every quarter, and nothing came out of that. And that is probably justified because they didn't have majority in Rajya Sabha or the upper house. And as their position in the upper house has improved, they have the ability to kind of push this through. This is revolutionary. This is once in a lifetime, right? Next, we are talking about the use of privatization versus divestment and the talk of monetization of assets. So today, NAFED has warehouses, Airport Authority has airports, NHAI has roads, GAIL, ONGC have gas and oil pipelines. I mean, these guys are sitting on these assets, right? And the government has finally decided to monetize all of these assets, which will create more resources for these companies, and they can put up new assets, new investments in infrastructure, right? And privatization, we believe, will bring out the best in the companies which are being run very inefficiently right now. In terms of investment, so all of you may remember that China traveled the journey of $2.5 trillion to $5 trillion GDP in 5 years, while US took 10 years to do that. That's because China fired up its consumption engine as well as capex or infrastructure engine. And this budget really marks the government firing the investment engine, the capex engine, or the infrastructure engine. They've announced a capex of 5.5 lakh crores in the middle of the pandemic. We are looking at a 30% step up in the capex of the government. We're also looking at 5 trillion rupees of disbursements by a DFI that the government is setting up over the next 3 years' time. So this 5 lakh is for the current year. This 5 lakh will be at a time when banks are not very keen to really disburse to the infrastructure sectors or to the capital intensive businesses after their harrowing experience over the last decade in terms of the asset quality cycle that they went through. Government had to make an intervention, and this is something which we believe is a right move. Also, the government has allowed foreign borrowings for REIT and InvITs, and this also paves the way for more money to be channelized into infrastructure projects. Again, the architecture of stressed bank is something that we've been speaking for the last 5 years. This finally sees the light of the day. And we believe that this will provide the much needed teeth to consolidate the lending by all the various PSU banks, and the stressed bank can deal with those in a far quicker manner, and also it will free up the bandwidth of the banks to focus on lending rather than just resolving the past mess. Tax terrorism is further reduced, and government has been taking strides on this side over the last few years, and we've seen some further, moves in that direction, which is a very, very welcome move. And it's the first time that I've heard economists present how deficit was overstated. All the while, last 10 years, we've been hearing how the government has been understating the deficit. So basically, the budget brought the attention back from the fear of government to the excitement of corporate profits. Markets were ignoring the third quarter results, the December quarter results, because they were fearful of all these taxes coming through, and they were hopeless about any of these changes coming through. I think the markets got caught on the wrong foot, and that's why you've seen a big up move in the market. Uh, Stocks are slaves of earnings. So really, if you look at the result season, this has been a spectacular result season after the second quarter being excellent as well. We saw 27% profit growth in the second quarter, and we are on the verge of a 31%. The result season is just about to get over, but we are at a 30% plus profit growth in the current quarter. And mind you, this is happening at a time when sales were down by 6% in the second quarter and were flat in the third quarter. And EBITDA margins are really tracking at highest levels that I've seen in the last 5 years. And what is in store ahead is something that I'm going to share with you. But usually, if the markets do well, I mean, if the corporate sector does well, then stocks are really a byproduct and outcome of how the corporate profits are behaving. So this is what I meant by stocks are slaves of earnings. If you look at the decade of 2000 to 2010, and many of the people on the call today may not have been around investing actively in the markets back then, but that was a great time period when, for the decade, EPS of Nifty grew by 13% per annum, and Nifty grew by 13% per annum as well, right? And during the 5 year period, 2002 to 2008, we saw a 25% growth in corporate earnings and a much stronger growth in the market performance. This decade was a lost decade because of a whole bunch of challenges when EPS grew by 7% and the markets performed by just 5% per annum. And this is a pathetic return for any equity investor. And that's why there are a lot of disgruntled investors about equities at this point in time. But that's probably because they've not lived this era of wealth creation. I'm going to share with you how I look at the next decade ahead. So look at this chart. This is very interesting. The corporate profit to GDP of India back in 2008 was at 7.8%. Our average for the last decade is at 5%. And we ended the last year at 1.8%. And US right now is at 12%. We believe that as sector after sector recovers, where telecom tariffs are expected to go up, capital goods sector is likely to see a recovery, corporate lenders are likely to see credit costs coming down, consumption is getting a boost, capital goods companies are getting a boost. We expect this to revert to mean of 5% over the next 5 years. And if it were to revert to the mean of 5%, then corporate earnings will have to grow at 26% per annum. And if stocks are slaves of earnings, and if earnings grow at 26% per annum, there's no reason to believe that stocks cannot have a fantastic performance during this 5 year period. The second framework that I want to share with you is miss and cut in corporate earnings versus beat and upgrade. So what you've seen in the last decade is miss in the earnings estimates by the corporates and cut in the corporate earnings by the analyst. And what you've started seeing for the last 2 quarters is beat in earnings estimates of the analyst by the corporate sector and upgrade of the corporate earnings by the analyst. So this is how I want to explain this to you. The gray bars are the estimate of earnings, and the green or red bars are the actual performance of earnings over the last 15 years. And if you see, we had a lot of red bars where repeatedly corporate sector for the last several years, in 6 out of the last 7 years, had a miss in the estimates of earnings. And this year marks one of the first years where you have corporate earnings beating the analyst estimates. And analysts in turn have started upgrading their earnings estimates. So FY21 Nifty EPS, which was expected to be as low as 450, is now expected to be 536. And for FY22, we were looking at a number of 637. We're now looking at a number of 713. So really, this is how I'd like to explain to you 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. We always started with a 19-20% earnings estimate, ended with negative or flat, right? Year after year. And this was the disappointing phase for the stock markets. And what we are starting to see now for FY21 and for FY22, we were looking at negative to flat growth for FY21. And we are ending with pretty strong growth for FY21. For FY22, we are looking at, again, pedestrian growth. We're now looking at 30% plus growth in earnings. The third framework that I want to highlight to you is what happens to an economy and the stock markets when the GDP of that country doubles from $2.5 trillion to $5 trillion. Now, there are only 3 countries in the world which have crossed the $5 trillion mark: US, Japan, and China. US took 10 years to travel that journey, ending 1988, and China took 5 years because they had their investment and consumption engine firing. During those periods, those markets had spectacular returns. We believe that based on PLI and all the other schemes that the government has announced, we are likely to see a robust earnings growth, robust stock market performance as India replicates how some of these other $5 trillion economies have behaved, because linear growth in GDP during this phase presents non-linear growth in investment opportunities, consumption opportunities, savings opportunities, and hence in the stock markets. The final fourth framework that I want to highlight to you is innovation versus demographics. The orange line is where the US markets are today. And, US markets are up about 3 times compared to where they were in 2008. Indian markets are kind of flattish during this period. And according to one of the leading global emerging markets head from Morgan Stanley, if India was to catch up with where US is today over the next 5 years, that implies a 20% return in the Indian markets every year. So these are the 4 frameworks for those of you who are worried about the up move in the market and the correction that is likely. Well, a correction is always possible. When you come to the stock markets, you have to be prepared for a 10-20% drawdown in the markets any moment. However, if you have a long-term perspective of the markets, then we think that the odds during the next 5 years are extremely favorable. FIs have been mostly investors in India, and they've started putting in big money as well, right? And we believe that we have India's decade ahead. Very quickly, I'm going to just wrap up by the last 2-3 slides. So basically, for those of you who are trying to time the market, right, over the last 30 years, we've had about 7,000-8,000 days of trading in the markets. And for those who have not timed the market and sat through their investments during this 30-year period, their money would have compounded by 31 times. If you missed the 10, 20, or 30 best days, then your 31 times compounding would have reduced to 11, 6, and 3 times. More importantly, out of the 10 days, 20 days, and 30 days, the biggest return days, 4 of them were in the bear market out of 10, 12 of them were in a bear market out of 20, and 18 out of them were in the bear market out of 30. So those who are trying to time the markets, those who are trying to avoid the bear market, those who want to invest when the economy and the corporate profits start doing well, will miss these 18 days and will end up multiplying their money a lot lower. So this is something which is, that's why I believe that wealth creation in stock market is about behavior more than any predictions. Now, this is the other thing which is called the magic of compounding. We believe time is the secret sauce of making money. A linear increase in the number of years that you invest in the markets can produce an exponential growth in wealth. So when we do a poll that if your money is compounding at 15% in 10 years, it'll be 4x. How much will it be in 20 years? Answer is 8x. In 30 years, 12x. The reality is that if your money is compounding at 15%, in 10 years, it's 4x. In 20 years, it'll be 16x. And in 30 years, it'll be 66x. And similarly for a 25% return. So really, it's not about timing the market. It's about time in the market, right? And this is how equities have done over a long period of time, including dividends. If you had invested a rupee in equity or a crore rupees in equities in 1979, you'd be worth 557 crores today. For those who are trying to do asset allocation between gold, bank deposits, etc., your crore would be 51 crores in gold and 28 crores in bank deposits. And this is the final slide, which I want to highlight, that for those who time the market, right, this is the average performance of American investor over the last 20 years. They actually end up doing worse than the index because of trying to buy low, sell high. They actually end up buying high and selling low. Same is the case with fixed income. A little better performance of the asset allocation funds. So that's very quickly, the frameworks, 4 frameworks of how. Admissions